Some places don't forget the dead, and some dead don't forget the living. In the heart of New Orleans, where jazz drifts through humid night air and lanterns flicker against old stone walls, lies St. Mercy Cemetery, a graveyard so ancient that the locals refuse to speak its full name after dark. They say, if you walk past its gates at midnight, you will hear footsteps behind you. But when you turn, no one is there. That's exactly what happened to Ethan Cole, a young documentary filmmaker from Chicago. He wasn't superstitious, he believed every horror was just a story. But that changed the night he stepped into St. Mercy's Cemetery with his camera, alone. The graveyard was strangely warm, as if the air itself was breathing. Marble tombs rose like broken teeth from the earth, and Spanish moss dripped down like rotting curtains. Ethan hit record. Night 1, St. Mercy Cemetery, he whispered. They say a shadow lives here, tall, faceless, and hungry. Suddenly, his audio spiked. A whisper slid through his headphones so close it felt like someone was breathing on his neck. Leave. Ethan froze. His flashlight flickered, shaking against his trembling hand. He spun around, nothing. Only rows of ancient tombs drowned in black. Trying to calm himself, he walked deeper. But every step felt heavier, slower. As if something unseen was pulling him forward. Then he saw it. A tall figure standing among the graves. No face. No features. Just a long, twisting shadow staring back at him, even though there was no light behind it. Ethan lifted his camera. The figure moved, without footsteps. It glided. In the recording, Ethan heard a second voice. His own voice whispering from behind him. Run. He dropped the camera, heart pounding, and sprinted toward the gate. But the graveyard stretched longer than before, like it was changing, twisting, refusing to let him escape. Behind him, the shadow followed. Silent. Closer. Hungrier. Just before he reached the gate, everything went black. Ethan woke up gasping. He wasn't in the cemetery anymore. Instead, he was lying on the floor of his motel room on Bourbon Street. His clothes were ripped, shoes covered in mud, and his camera, the one he dropped inside the graveyard, was sitting neatly on the table, as if someone had placed it there. Ethan tried to remember how he got back. Nothing. Just darkness, and that shadow. He splashed water on his face, his hands still shaking. On the mirror, written in wet streaks as if traced by invisible fingers, were two words. Not done. Ethan backed away, heart pounding. Suddenly, the camera powered on by itself. The screen showed footage from last night. Static. Footsteps. His own terrified breathing. Then the video glitched. The cemetery appeared. But the silhouette was now standing right behind him in the footage. Ethan froze. Then, the camera lens suddenly pointed toward the ground, as if something else was holding it. Ethan heard himself screaming. But in the footage, he wasn't moving. It was like his body was frozen. And the screaming was happening inside him. A loud knock rattled the motel door. Bam, bam, bam. Ethan jumped. Housekeeping. A woman's voice called from the hallway. Ethan hurried to the door and opened it. No one was there. Only silence, and a trail of wet footprints leading away from his room. But they weren't his. They were too long, too narrow. Like something not quite human. He slammed the door shut. The lights flickered. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered with trembling hands. Ethan. The voice on the phone wasn't normal. Layered. Deep. Like several voices speaking at once. You entered our ground. Now we enter yours. The call ended. The air grew heavy, like the room itself was breathing again. Cold. Wet. Rotting. From the corner of the room, Ethan saw it. a shadow stretching up the wall. Tall. Twisted. Moving though nothing else was. Ethan stumbled backward. His chest tightened. The shadow lifted its head, slow and unnatural. Where a face should have been. Only darkness. Suddenly. It pointed at Ethan. And the motel lights went out. Ethan screamed. Click. The camera turned on again. Recording Ethan could only hear his heartbeat and the faint scratching against the motel walls. The camera's small red recording light blinked like a dying heartbeat. A whisper slid across the ceiling. Back. To where you woke us. Ethan felt cold fingers brush his neck even though nothing was there. He grabbed his camera and ran out of the motel into the midnight streets. Jazz music echoed far away, but the streets nearby were empty, unnaturally empty. He didn't know where to go. But his camera did. The map app opened by itself. And marked a pin on St. Mercy Cemetery. No, Ethan whispered. But his feet moved anyway, like the shadow was pulling him back. St. Mercy Cemetery, 3:11 a.m. The gates were already open. Fog crawled across the ground like living skin. The air smelled of wet stone and something metallic. Blood. Ethan raised his camera. It flickered, something was draining its battery fast. He stepped inside. With every step, distant whispers grew louder. Husbands, wives, children, long dead. Crying beneath their tombs. He took us. Never let us go. Run. Ethan's breath shook. He followed the whispers to the oldest part of the cemetery. A sunken tomb cracked open like a broken jaw. Inside. A stairway led underground. Ethan hesitated. Then descended. The crypt below. The air was suffocating. Walls dripped with black water. Names scratched by nails covered the stone. Hundreds of them. At the end of the tunnel, candlelight flickered. And standing in the center. The shadow. Its shape shifted like smoke trapped in a storm. Arms long, face absent. Feeding on the darkness around it. Behind the creature lay hundreds of faint outlines. Souls. Half visible, screaming without sound. Ethan raised his camera. Why me? The shadow answered not with a voice. But with memories. Ethan saw visions. New Orleans, centuries ago. A priest who betrayed the townspeople, sealing their souls in darkness. The priest became something else. A hunger. A shadow. This was him. And now. He wanted Ethan. The shadow lunged. Ethan ran deeper into the crypt, flashlight shaking. He tripped, crashing into a stone slab. On it. Inscribed in French. Only light remembers the dead. Ethan grabbed a rusted lantern nearby and sparked it. A weak flame caught. The shadow shrieked. Recoiling, twisting like burning paper. Ethan lifted the lantern higher. The flame grew. The crypt walls began to crack. Souls whispering, thanking him. The shadow screamed. Its form peeling away, layer by layer. Ethan stumbled up the stairs as the crypt shook. He burst out into the cemetery. Behind him. A blast of blinding white light shot from the tomb. Then silence. Gravestones stood peacefully under the fading night. Ethan gasped for air. He survived. He turned the camera toward himself. If anyone sees this. I didn't imagine it. A cold breeze cut him off. His breath turned white. Behind him. A shadow slowly rose. Taller than before. Ethan froze. The shadow's head tilted. And whispered. Light remembers. But shadows never die. Static filled the screen. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the camera slowly refocused on a single gravestone inside St. Mercy Cemetery. Ethan Cole. His birth year. And the year of death, 2024. But the strange part. The stone looked old. Weathered. Like it had been there for decades. The footage suddenly cut to Ethan's camera from the day he entered the graveyard. As if rewinding his life. His final unfinished sentence echoed. If anyone sees this. I didn't imagine it. The screen glitched. Then returned to show night vision footage. A faint silhouette walked between the tombs. It was Ethan. But not human anymore. His eyes glowed pale white. His shadow moved independently, stretching across graves like a hungry animal. A whisper echoed. Light remembers, but I belong to the dark. The screen flickered. And Ethan's face appeared close to the camera, distorted, smiling unnaturally. You watched. Now it knows you too. The video began to distort faster. Cryptic whispers filled the audio. Screams, footsteps. Echoing into silence. Suddenly, the noise stopped. A quiet message faded onto the screen. Some stories never end. Because some shadows never sleep. The cemetery faded to black. Soft jazz music from New Orleans began playing. But it didn't feel comforting. More like a warning. Then the narrator's voice. If you felt a chill while watching, don't ignore it. And if your shadow looks different tonight, don't turn around. Beat. Silence. Subscribe if you dare. Like the video if the shadow hasn't taken you yet. And share this story before it finds someone else.